This actually is right at the end of the new life. So to set the scene, Baba had started Manonash at that cave in Hyderabad with Gustaji, Pendu, Baijul, Erich, and Dalit Singh. And he was working with those models. It's a very memorable place, the cave in Hyderabad. But then they traveled by foot or bus from there up to Aurangabad. You know Aurangabad, right? Most of you. And Baba, let me say this. Another big aspect of the new life seems to have been working with religions. Time after time after time, Baba would have these events where they would read out prayers from the different religions or passages from the Holy Scriptures of the different religions. Islam, Christianity, Vedanta, mostly. I can't think of many in Buddhism. A lot, not just once or twice. Sometimes every day there would be such readings. It looks like Baba was working with the religions in a major way in the new life. And this continued with Manonash with those models that Baba never explained what he was doing with them, but apparently there was major work he was doing. And up in Aurangabad, he went to a lot of holy places there. Aurangabad seems to be especially suitable. You know, there are the Ellora caves. Some of you have been there, where there are these magnificent temples, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain temples. And right within a mile is the city of Kuldabad, which has this really glorious history connected with Sufism. And Baba did many other things in the neighborhood. He went to, a Christian cemetery and all these fabulous stories. I'm just alluding to something you can read about much more detail. By the way, a particularly excellent book, I think, is Bao's book on the new life. It's a hefty book, but it's quite readable actually, and it's very detailed and very accurate and quite an interesting thing. So I really recommend it. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about? I know Jeff Wilburton had a big role in that, and can you talk a little bit about the authorship process for that?
Well, actually, I was one of the people it got sent to originally. Myself, Charles Haynes, and Buzz Connor. Bao had asked us to do it. We were just starting graduate school, and we couldn't do it. It wasn't possible. So Bao wound up passing it on to Jeff, and he worked on it for, 20 years, 15 years.
What was he working with?
It was a typed manuscript, typed by Ephraim Working Buckswala. Not much shorter than this, I think. I remember reading it.
So how did the initial volume come to be?
Well, Jeff did an enormous amount of work with consulting every other source he could find on the new life, going to people and asking them from their memories. It was quite a project.
He also worked on it so long that there were a number of other books that became available during that time period.
Yeah, that's right. Balnath II's volume on the New Life, and Lord Mayhare, and so I think he checked with every source he could, and added a lot of anecdotes and stories from all over the place.
A lot of stories, and then with stories come details. Cross-referencing those details and adding more relevant material for context.
Yeah, if you read, this is the latest edition of Tales from the New Life. Are you aware that it got republished in a new edition recently? It's a marvelous book. It's a record of conversations that Don Stevens had with Erich. Mani was there, and then there with Meru, Mara Meru, and so forth. It really is a wonderful living book. There are a lot of mistakes in it, though. And so those will be actually corrected in Bao's book. But it's quite it's really a most excellent. Of course, there's Lord Mayhare, and that's really quite good also.
So the new edition, the mistakes that were there before remain?
Yeah, no, we didn't change that. It wasn't suitable for a book like that. It's conversations, and its value is that it's so living. I did put in little notes from time to time when there was just a plain error, which there are from place to place. Yeah.
Weren't there several of the companions that actually kept diaries during the new life?
Yeah, the major source were the diaries that were kept for the first year. At the beginning, from October 16th through January, Dr. Ghani had the job of keeping a diary. And actually, we're going to be publishing several volumes about the new life and get it done. And I've done the editing of Ghani's diary. It's never been published until now. But after he left, Nilu took up the job. And his diaries are published in the New Life Circulars. I mentioned those, right? They're a major source on the New Life. But then on May 1st, Baba had them discontinue the diaries. And I'm really sorry that happened, because information is much thinner after that, as a matter of
Which year?
1950. So for the last year and a half, there still is a lot of information, but you don't get those daily accounts that are in fact there for the first year or so. When we republish New Life materials, the circulars will be one of the major items in it. But anyway, Baba was up in Aurangabad. By the way, it was there that Baba dictated the prayer of repentance. And I find that to be a very beautiful little detail, because, when I always, from the beginning, we repent, O God most merciful, Baba dictated it, and Baba would be doing like this. And I always sort of thought, yeah, Baba's really being nice, because I'm actually the one doing all this stuff. And he's repenting as though he's committed these sins also, but he's just being nice to me by making me feel good about it. Well, actually, he was in the state of being full of weaknesses. That's what he said himself, right up until the end. So he dictated at a time in his life when that was his experience of being full of sins and weaknesses, as we are. So it was up in probably late November 1951, he dictated the prayer of repentance. But from there, he with his Daulat Singh got sick and had to go back home. So it was just the four of them at that point. Erich, Pendu, Gustaji, and Baidul. And they traveled by foot and they got little lifts by truck from here to there, down to Marazad, Aurangabad. What's that, about 70 miles or something like that? And the famous story at the mosque at Imampur happened on the way. I'm skipping over all of that so I can get to this. So then the last 60 days or so of Manonash were carried out at Marazad. And the first, 12 days or so were done. Baba did his Manonash work up on Seclusion Hill. There were 2 cabins up there at the time, and Baba was working in them. But the wind was so strong that it was disturbing his work. So Padri, who was old life, not a new life companion, but had done a lot of very helpful tasks throughout the new life, was called in. He tore down the 2 cabins and rebuilt them at Marazad as what is now Erich's room. You've been there, right? Erich's room? So that was the Manonash cabin. So Baba did a lot of his Manonash work there. That whole part of Mirazad was screened off with this kind of matting so that it was cut off from, nobody could come in. Certain people were called in for certain tasks. I think Ramju might have come in, and Kaikabad, who was a New Life companion, and a few others. But it was very strictly controlled and measured. And again, it's hard to, I mean, I've, from studying this, gotten a bit of a sense of how taxing and traumatic for Baba these seclusions were, and particularly this one. The Mandali were really worried about, I mean, he had said many times he could die during Manonash, and they were quite apprehensive. But it was during this time, this is all the setting. I want to read this stuff out because we just discovered this and it's quite remarkable. These are dictations, points from Baba's dictation. You see that? 25th, 25/12, 1951. This is Erich's own notes. So I'm going to read about 5 or 6 or 7 pages because I think they're quite remarkable. The last 50 days of Manonash work. This is Baba speaking now, right? I want to wage war during the period of 50 days from 29th December to 16th February 52. 2. The first 40 days are decisive. 3. Now, what part will I have to play in the war? 4. I will have to fight an enemy. 5. This enemy is so unconquerable that unless I put forth an all-out attack, this enemy cannot be subdued. 6. Now, I will be the one who will be fighting against this enemy. 7. But today, how I feel, only God and I know. My body has become a wreck. My mind is weak. My spirit is down. 8. In short, today, physically, mentally, and spiritually, I feel absolutely down and flat. 9. With such a body, mind and spirit, with such a body, mind, and spirit, I will have to fight my enemy, who is a powerful foe. Who is this enemy? It is my mind possessing 7 deadly weapons. 11. These 7 weapons are so deadly that unless I am helped, it will be impossible to overthrow my enemy. 12. Now, which are these 7 deadly weapons? 13. The foremost amongst them can be compared with the A, present age atom bomb, and that is lust. 2. B, the next is greed of wealth, power, fame, and so forth. C, the third is anger. D, backbiting, slander. E, telling lies. F, jealousy. This weapon of the enemy is to be captured too. G, ego. This weapon tortures me most, to such an extent that it makes me do toba toba. That's like this, right? 14. If these 7 main weapons or qualities of my mind are destroyed, then I can achieve my Manonash. 15. Today, my mind is alive with these 7 deadly qualities. If they are, so Baba's saying that he's full of weaknesses, you know. He's got these problems. If they are overpowered, then I can achieve Manonash. 16. Now, how is it possible to overpower and destroy these 7 weapons, qualities? It is possible with the mind itself as the instrument. And now, I'm struck by that. If we had time, we could go into it. But Baba is not using the 3 paths, the traditional means of the 3 paths. He's going to destroy the mind with the mind. There's another place where Baba said something about this. I think it's quite remarkable. 17, it is possible to use mind itself as instrument to destroy the 7 weapons of the mind. 18, these 7 weapons of the mind keep the mind alive and are the means of the mind's sustenance. They are the helpers and friends of the mind. 19. So if these 7 weapons are the helpers of the mind, or the helpers of the mind are destroyed, then naturally the mind is also destroyed, because the very means of, and I guess what's this? Sustenance of the mind are destroyed. Yeah. 20, but to destroy the 7 helpers of the mind, it is the help of the mind that is necessary. 21. It sounds paradoxical to say that the very means of sustenance of mind is the flesh and blood of the mind, could be overpowered by the mind itself. 22. Therefore, intellect falls short to understand this, to grasp this, and to, what's that word? Maneuver according to this strategy. Okay, 23. Nevertheless, an all-out effort is absolutely necessary for this action. Either the mind must be overpowered or be persuaded in order that the mind must attack and overthrow its own 7 friends and maintainers. 24. Now, this problem takes us beyond human understanding. How the state of mind should be maintained while the mind is being overpowered or is being persuaded, while it actually had to meditate its own downfall on its own initiative by attacking its own 7 supporters. 25. It is next to impossible to destroy the mind, taking into consideration my physical, mental, and spiritual state. 26. The only solution then is an all-out effort for an all-out attack. See, it really sounds like this was a, I don't know, what do you say? Tense is, we don't have, that's not too weak a word for it. Absolutely critical period. But 27, but for this help is required. Foremost, 1. So now Baba's going to go through the different players that he's assembled as part of the picture to help him with the Manonash. This, I think, is very remarkable. He's giving an idea of how he used these different instrumentalities in this. 1, help from God. God must help me 100% in this, and I am confident of success in this work of mine because I am confident that God will help me 100%. Again, it's always God, it's not the master. Continued. 2, help of musts and saints. Now, let me say, Baba had done a lot of work with musts and saints in this year of the new life. And throughout the Manonash period, he was continuously having, especially Baidul, bring people, not lots of them, but one or two at a time, from different places. I think Muhammad got brought from Mehrabad, but some from Bombay. He even tried to get Tilgur Swami, who was a Jivan Mukta, God-realized soul, from down south, but he wouldn't come for whatever reason. So remember that was going on during this period. That was part of Manonash, Baba's work with musts. Just one or two at a time, usually just one at a time. Help of musts and saints. All saints and musts contacted by me up to date must help me. Therefore, I am trying my best to keep with me at Pimplegaon, that means Merazad, right? During these 50 days, at least one or two or three musts and saints, so that their presence near me will mean they're representing all musts and saints contacted by me. Right, you get it? Baba's explaining he's using two as a means of keeping contact with all of them. Baba's actually explaining something about his universal work, which he rarely did. 3, help through blessings and invocations. Kaikabad, you know Kaikabad? He actually had been on the new life, but his only work was to repeat the name of God 100,000 times a day. Through most of his life, he would say Baba's name. But during the new life, that was prohibited because Baba wasn't God anymore. I think he was saying Ahura Mazda. Is that right, Peter? Do you happen to remember? I seem to remember one place he had to say Ahura Mazda.
Not Yazdan, he was staying Hodamas.
So, I mean, that instead of Baba, which is 2 syllables, Ahura Mazda is 5. That makes the job 100,000 times a day a lot bigger.
You just have to say Baba, you didn't have to say Meher Baba?
He would just say Baba, I think. He had a system of counting. Yeah. Help through blessing. Kaikabad is entrusted with this work to invoke God's help and blessings, so that I achieve my Manonash. See, Baba is actually explaining a little bit these different players and what the heck they're doing. He almost never did this. Sometimes Baijul and Gustaji are also asked by me to invoke God's help for me. They would come in for half an hour a day and repeat a certain phrase. 4, help by 4 with me. Okay, these are the 4 companions that were left. Gustaji, Baijul, Pendu, and Erich. These will help me by obeying me and by doing work that I ask them to do.
It's like this is his army.
Yeah, it is. This is like a general showing what the different are doing. 5, help by those who stay adjoining my enclosure. Kekabad, Kaka, Nilu, Kakabarya, right? Nilu, Dr. Nilu, Vishnu, Krishna, he had been called. Some of you might have met Krishna. He was staying at Mehrabad during the later years. He was from down south. Padri and their servants can help me by creating a quiet atmosphere in spite of their individual and collective duties entrusted to them. From 29th December to 15th or 16th? 16th February, I request them not to make even the least noise. I know it would mean as if you are staying in a desolate graveyard. There will be a hard thing for them to do, but do it they must, and happily do it. And do it happily too, knowing that by this means they will be really helping me. I am not creating a farce and I do not wish to bother them with this without any purpose. My work is of the mind, and least noise means a great disturbance. I do not mind noise by the musts and saints, even if they sing loudly or dance or shout. I do not mind. The crowing of the cocks and the buzz of the stove. Is that buzz?
Looks like it.
Buzz of the stove, I do not mind. Even if villagers play on drums, I do not mind, because all these noises, my mind has taken them for granted. They will not be foreign to my mind. But if Bygel persuades the musts with even a loud whisper, or if Erich and Pendu perforce whisper loudly into Gustaji's ear, as Gustaji is getting deaf every day, my mind will take these noises as foreign. Is that what it is? Foreign?
As
Yeah.
foreign.
Foreign. And I most probably will be disturbed. Hence, during these last 10 days from 16th December to 24th, that's before this, the 10 days before this, I have been constantly reminding Bygel, Pendu, and Erich to make the least noise so that they get practice to become noiseless from 29th to 16th February. What's that word?
Similarly?
Is that similarly?
Looks like it.
Similarly, I had to remind those staying outside my enclosed. Is that enclosure? Okay, my enclosure. 27. My enclosed compound. My mind has a compartment for noises. What's that word? However, taken for granted, and any other least noise proves a disturbance to me. My mind is now like, now this is the soldier's analogy, so here Baba gives it, is like a soldier's mind regarding noise. A soldier valiantly fights with his gun or any other weapon, facing his strongest foe, and gives a brave stand, unmindful of the bombs buzzing over his head or bombs bursting on his either side. These noises, he takes them for granted and as a part of the war paraphernalia. But if at that moment, while the soldier is all attention and is facing his enemy's guns bravely, and who is positively unmindful of all other great thundering noises of shells, tanks, bombs, and bombers, a bumblebee buzz near his face is just the cause when the soldier's mind is distracted and is now unattentive with his weapon. The result is that the enemy gets a straight and an easy target, and the end is with the death of the brave soldier. It's quite an analogy, isn't it? Yeah. Similarly, my mind gets disturbed with even the least noise if it is foreign. I have to do this work with my mind. I will do while I am walking up and down. Yeah, you see, Baba wasn't just staying always in his cabin. He would sometimes walk around the enclosed space. or while I am sitting, or while I am standing. I may not be doing any of the work during all 23 hours, and when during the 24th hour of the day I am engaged in my work, and if at that time there is least noise, the result would be like that of the soldier in war, distracted by the buzz of a bumblebee. Therefore, I ask you all staying near me and in my vicinity to help me by becoming noiseless during these 50 days. But do this happily. You will be helping me by this in my work of my mind's war on mind itself. So that's quite an amazing, that seems like the point of this was to sort of say, look, you really have to keep quiet. It really matters. It's not just, I'm not just making myself difficult. 6, help I will derive from the model of different religions, temples, from photos of prophets, and from other books. Baba had a bunch of images of Zoroaster, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, and he didn't have an image of Muhammad since they never created them, but I think he had the name of Muhammad, Fatima, that's Muhammad's daughter, and Hassan or Hussein, one of the sons of Ali and Fatima.
Wrong, too? Or
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Why those ones?
Were these the models that Arabs had to carry around?
He was working with those models. That's what he's referring to. But in addition, he had these images. I had these images and these names, and he would do different things with each of them.
So it's interesting that Baba was okay with noise from the saints and the monks and
Yeah.
the birds and all
Right.
of that, but that the Mandali,
Yeah.
those few, he couldn't tolerate noise from. Like that was
Yeah.
a distinct category.
And he gave that analogy when you're in a war, bombs are going off, and you sort of factor that in and expect it. So when you have
It's
monks
not
and
the big
saints
things,
around you,
It's the little ones.
yeah. But the people right around him were the ones who could really cause the trouble. Yeah.
And also, wasn't he telling the women, all the women, that they were to remain quiet as well?
Yeah, haven't seen references to that, but they were on the other side. They were on the women's side, but I'm sure that they had to keep absolutely quiet. And
Not very late, have them make the birds be quiet too, like they have to shoo off the birds if they were making noise.
it didn't seem to matter at this time. There are other times where it did, but it sounds like at this time it didn't matter. That was all factored in. He was ready for all of that. It was those around him who could really disturb him. See, look at what Baba is like. Baba is really, he's almost pleading with his Mandali and his companions after all this new life, where they, okay. So look at this 7. I mean, he's going through again, like a general or like a conductor of a symphony orchestra. He's looking at, say, a general, all the different forces and he has that he's working with and what their role is going to be. Help.
Who's the audience for this? Who was this written down?
Well, all we know is points from Baba's dictation. I've never seen this being published before. Have you ever seen it? I've never had.
I haven't seen this published, but there's mention of this day when this was written, and there was
Yeah.
kind of a meeting to talk to the companions and the people present at Maris. Bobby was there.
I get the impression the audience was the Mandali. It was all for them. It's like, I mean, it's quite extraordinary that Baba, in the new life, they had to obey the tiniest little thing. They certainly would have known by this time they had to obey. But it's like, Baba was really trying to make the point, look, this really matters. This is really no joke. I'm not just trying to create difficulties for you so that I can chastise you. You could really have disastrous results.
And he's engaging their minds
Yeah.
as well.
That's true.
So well laid out.
So they can have a little glimpse of what he's doing. See, he's giving the broad picture here of all the, so here are the signatories and others. You know, people around India who had signed this or signed that. For this,
Well, you haven't said anything about it being the, I think the term was irrevocable step. Was that an irrevocable step that Baba's happened to go through in this Manonash?
yeah, that's what he called it at the end of the 100-day seclusion, the God-determined step, and also he used the word irrevocable. Yeah, and we've just gone tearing through, we haven't gone tearing through the new life, we just stopped at various stages on it. There was a lot in that meeting and during that period. Yeah, but then he actually said after the seclusion and for the first couple days when the meeting was getting going that he didn't know what the step was. But then one day he said, this morning at 3 o'clock, God revealed to me Manonash. Then he knew what it was. That's what he said, you know, that he actually didn't know these things. So the signatories and others, for this I have arranged to send a circular to all signatories to repeat God's name wholeheartedly for 1 hour from 29th, I guess, December 51 to the 16th February 52. So he was using that date, 16th February. I have asked Pendu, Erich, Baijal, Kaka, Gustaji, Nilu, Padri, and Vishnu to repeat God's name wholeheartedly as follows. And there was a lot of this happening. He would call them in, and they would do this for half an hour or for an hour, separate groups. 1. Kaka, Gustaji, and Erich will daily repeat Ahura Mazda for 1 hour. This was in Baba's presence. He had them come in and do this. So Baba wasn't alone all the time, but he had these things going on. 2. Pendu and Baijal will daily repeat Yezdan for 1 hour. Padri will daily repeat for only 15 minutes daily. You know, look at this. He's got everyone time assignments. 3. Nilu and Vishnu will daily repeat Parabrahma. Nilu for 1 hour, Vishnu for 15 minutes.
So all of this was done in Baba's presence, so Padre would come from Maribod?
Yeah. I think all of it was. I'd have to check, but I know a lot of these things were done, and I suspect all of them. 4. Kaikabad repeats daily the name of God. See, he was doing it, had been doing it for years and years, and through the new life too, 100,000 times a day, right? 5. I have also asked the ladies who stay at Pimplegown, and there were the 4 who had been there from the beginning, Mara, Mani, Miru, and Goher. But there were also some others. I think Kitty was there, actually. I don't know if Khorshed was there and her mom.
Rano, did Rano come?
I think so. I can't remember exactly all who was there. To daily repeat God's name for half an hour. Therefore, to destroy the main 7 deadly weapons of mind, I have these 7 helps. 29. In short, I want to tell you that by 16th February 1952, I must win or lose. There will be no compromise. For me, the result of my 50 days all-out attack from Manonash is of greater importance than anything else. I have I have to free myself from bondage, and you all too will be free from 16th February 1952 in one way or the other. So that was that dictation, which I think is quite extraordinary. I have a hard, Yeah.
What were the 7 helps about one paragraph above this? I have my 7 helps.
These 7 things, there are actually 7 of them that we went through.
That would be like the saints and mosques and all that.
Yeah, 7, helplessness, the saints in the mosque, yeah. So these are actually, really, the number is significant because there are 7 enemies he's fighting against. There seems to be some, organization of this war. Yeah, it's like a general organizing his war.
So what is the significance of 16? Because the new life started on the 16th of October, now we've got the
Yeah.
16th of February. He seems to have,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Baba really organized the whole new life very, he would set out the next phase and there'd be definite dates involved in it. And he really kept to his schedule pretty well. He wasn't flippant about it at all. He seems to have finished Manonash early, as best I can see. It seems like, that the last day, a lot of these things we read about different people reciting different things, the whole day was full of it. And then in the evening, they had a little Duni pit there. And Baba dictated to Erich and had Erich write in a slip of paper something like, all the rites, rituals, and ceremonies of the world are hereby consumed into ash. Was that it?
All
Flame.
rites, rituals, and ceremonies of all religions of the world are hereby consumed in the flame.
Yes. And while the Duni was going, he had Erich pull it out and read it in a loud voice. And Baba gave it to Baba, who threw it into the Duni. And Baba had that Duni ash collected the next day.
But
And
I remember Eric telling that Bob would stay by the fire, watching the ash until it was cool,
oh,
to pick up with his own hands and put in those pans.
wow,
In other words, for a long, long, long time.
that would have been ours, yeah.
Do we know where that canister of ashes is?
Those are both saved in the archives. They were kept in the East Room. They were kept in the East Room for a number of years. The thing about those ashes that were collected is there were strict orders that nobody should ever use them for any purpose whatsoever. So they're kept in those rectangular canisters that we saw
But I
often.
remember Monty saying that when they were going through things after Baba left the body, Baba had said that you should never even open them. They should never be opened. And someone went to them and said, oh, what's this? And started to open them. And I guess Monty, it sounded like Monty said, wait, no, those are the ones.
Yeah,
From 51, is it?
52.
52.
January,
No, don't open them.
Is it January?
January 31st, 52.
Yeah, this I had thought that the women didn't even know what it was because they wouldn't have heard about it even.
Well, maybe it wasn't she, but she.
Yeah, somebody, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was so that mankind was saved.
Right. We've seen the war going on. And I heard that when they picked them up, these canisters were extremely heavy, as if they were full of stones or something.
Oh, what happened is to make sure that all the ashes were removed, a lot of the sand was also taken with them.
Taken also.
It was very efficiently, completely removed.
Yeah. So this sounds like this was the end of Manonash and the end of, I always reluctant to say the end of the new life because, it's going on.
It's endless.
It's endless. But Baba's life changed. He merged into life at that point, as he called it, which we were describing earlier.
Now, Ward, I associated in my memory from, years, decades back, reading a message given after the Manonash, that in which Baba said there is now no contact with any point in time. Does that strike anyone as
I don't remember that.
I was very taken with that one. But I haven't been able to find it.
I don't remember it in this message, but a very, in fact, might even be worth. We're just jumping to here and there at the, here. It might be worth taking a look at the message that Baba did give right after this, because it's one of the clearest explanations of the new life that I know anywhere. Let's see.
That comment might be in there.
I'm just trying to remember if it is. I don't exactly remember, but maybe it is there. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, life circulars. Yeah, so this is where right away the life, this is the reflowed version on the Trust website. They began, New Life Circulars ended and the Life Circulars began. And this is a really major one. Somebody want to read some of this out so we have someone else's voice? Yeah.
Manonash, Marazad Pimplegao, February 6, 1952. God is everywhere and does everything. God is within us and knows everything. God is without us and sees everything. God is beyond us and is everything. The one all-pervading, all-comprehending, all-powerful God, who is the self of ourselves and besides whom nothing is real, has helped me and guided me during the Manonash period of my work, and now makes me dictate to you the following. To try to understand...
Could you read it on using the microphone, please?
Yeah, sure. To try to
Now, Baba hadn't been giving discourses like this throughout the New Life. So this is something new.
To try to understand with the mind that which the mind can never understand is futile. And to try to express by sounds of language and in form of words the transcendental state of the soul is even more futile. All that can be said and has been said and will be said by those who live and experience that state is that when the false self is lost, the real self is found. That the birth of the real can only follow the death of the false, and that dying to ourselves, the true death which ends all dying, is the only way to perpetual life. This means that when the mind with its satellites, desires, cravings, longings, is completely consumed by the fire of divine love, then the infinite, indestructible, indivisible, eternal self is manifested. This is Manonash, the annihilation of the false, limited, miserable, ignorant, destructible I, to be replaced by the real I, the eternal possessor of infinite knowledge, love, power, peace, bliss, and glory in its unchangeable existence. Manonash, which is bound to result in this glorious state, when plurality goes and unity comes, ignorance goes and knowledge comes, binding goes and freedom comes. We are all permanently lodged in this shoreless ocean of infinite knowledge. I'll just read. And yet are infinitely ignorant of it until the mind, which is the source of this ignorance, vanishes forever. For ignorance ceases to exist when the mind ceases to exist. Somebody else want to read?
Unless and until ignorance is removed and knowledge is gained, the knowledge whereby the divine life is experienced and lived, everything pertaining to the spiritual seems paradoxical. God, whom we do not see, we say is real, and the world that we do see, we say is false. In experience, what exists for us does not really exist, and what does not exist for us really exists.
You know, that last sentence, I can't think of a clearer statement of that idea
Yeah.
anywhere, but that's the paradox that we face, isn't it?
We must lose ourselves in order to find ourselves. Thus, loss itself is gain. We must die to self to live in God. Thus, death means life. We must become completely void inside to be completely possessed by God. Thus, complete emptiness means absolute fullness. We must become naked of selfhood by possessing nothing, so as to be absorbed in the infinity of God. This nothing means everything. For these last 4 months, according to ordinary human standards, and by ways and means known to me, I have tried my utmost for the achievement of Manonash, and I can say in all truth that I feel satisfied with the work done. This satisfaction is due to the feeling I have of having regained my old life, Meher Baba state, yet retaining my new life, ordinary state. I have regained the knowledge, strength, and greatness that I had in the old life, and retained the ignorance, weaknesses, and humility of the new life. This union of the old and new life states has given birth to life, life that is eternally old and new. God, this is so beautiful. Who wants to?
I got a question about this, because it seems, I mean, Baba has done something here that, as far as I can tell, has never been done before. That the old and the new life are combined together, so that we no longer have to worry about these weaknesses, trying to get rid of those. They're part of this oneness that he has created through this enormous undertaking of Manonash.
It's like the avataric consciousness has come to embrace it all.
Everything.
Yeah. It seems like he's really become the avatar. He was from the beginning, but he actually went through the archetypal experience to really become it. So
Yeah, I was thinking about this because before, when he was a young man, before he met Babajan and Vipassani, he didn't know what life he was living because he had no perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and he went from that nothing to everything, and missed the experience that all the rest of us have, getting from here to there.
That's true.
So he had to go back at some point and experience all those things in
Yeah.
order to bring us with him, I guess.
But that was the veil lifted. And it was, this goes back to the original ancient soul doing it,
Yeah.
to the very beginning. Before there was a perfect master, only absolute God.
Do you think that his automobile accident placed the stamp on all this work that he's doing?
That's what he said in the message afterwards.
Mhm.
To his breaking his
The
body?
personal disaster, he mentioned the personal disaster and referred to it then.
Someone, I don't remember, maybe might have erred somebody, I felt that the Prague accident was in fact the culmination of Manonash, even though he's saying here that he's finished Manonash. But apparently there was something for the West that needed to be done, because Baba did apparently send a letter, I haven't seen it myself, to Elizabeth saying he needed seclusion in Myrtle Beach for 2 weeks to finish certain work for Manonash to the West. Some of that might be explained here. It might not be Manonash itself, but the manifestation and release of Manonash. She's going to get to that, actually.
So where are these available? Are they on the Perpetual Trust website? Or?
It could be.
You read this in Lord Mayor, right?
I got this from the circulars themselves, which I have.
But there should be at least, maybe possibly a slightly edited version of this, but I think probably exactly this, because you'll notice that many of the pieces of this have been used. In God Speaks, we have at least two takes from this, the paradox of seeking God
Yeah.
and
And also that in Stay with God, Francis Brabazon, there's a message from Baba, and some of what we read is included there also.
so it was this is a monumental message.
Yeah. No, this is a monumental message. One of the really important messages of the Advent, I would say.
Would it also be in Bow's book on the new life?
A lot of it is, but you might be able to find the life circulars on the Trust website. I just forget. I think they're there though. Life circulars.
At least some of them are.
Yeah.
They all are there?
I think they all might be. So check there. This is the very first of them. 6th February 1952. Yeah.
Life for me now means 1, free and obligationless life. 2, life of a master in giving orders, and that of a servant in all humility.
Right, so you can see those two, right? The old life and the new life.
3,
Both. Yeah.
the feeling of absolute conviction that we are all eternally one, indivisible, and infinite in essence, and with it a feeling of separateness from the real omnipresent self through ignorance. 4, life of God in essence, and that of man in actions. 5, life of strength born of inherent knowledge of oneness and of weakness born of binding desires. My efforts for Manonash have been positive, and the result of Manonash will be positive. But the actual and concrete manifestation of this result, I leave entirely to the divine sanction. Where, how, and when the result will be, I leave entirely to the divine decree.
Now this is the only place I can think of where those two terms come up. Can you think of them? The divine sanction and the divine decree. Interesting. So in the future, when all the theologians jump on it, we can have lively debates about what those things mean.
Well, and then he goes on to explain.
It may be at any moment, hour, month, year, or age. It may be in any part of the world, either in the east or in the west, in the north or in the south. Yet in effect will embrace all four. It may be under any and all circumstances. I feel that it will be a sudden coming, and a becoming of the essence of all love, unity, realization, revelation, and illumination in its varying degrees, for me and for all those connected with me.
It sounds like this manifestation.
Yeah, it does.
This is, that's what I hear in it.
By the way, right at the end of the Great Seclusion in 1949, before he had announced the New Life, Baba did give a really major message, a short, just one of these oath type things, where he mentions the word. But through the entirety of the New Life, I haven't found one instance where he talks about the word. So there was a suspension of that theme for those 4 years. Whatever you want to make of that.
During my work of Manonash, the four companions who were with me, as also others who were near or away from me, have helped me to their utmost limit. All along my Manonash period, I have been absolutely helpless and full of weaknesses in my ordinary human state. And it can truly be said that God in his manifestation, and that the saints and the prayers of all those who love me, have accomplished for me the internal work of Manonash, while the four companions have seen to its external aspect.
Let's see. Yeah, let's keep going because it's, you know.
Okay, I intend to go in the beginning of April of this year to the west for some months.
By the way, throughout the New Life, Baba had kept saying, I'm thinking to go to the west. 1950, he said he was going to do it. 1951, he said he was going to do it. And there was this correspondence back and forth with Elizabeth. And then he was going to do it in the beginning of 1952, but he wound up going, I think, in April 52.
And so during the new life, when correspondence with the whole rest of the world was not possible, there was one exception. And that was with Elizabeth concerning the center in Myrtle Beach. That was always open.
You know, they say at the center also that although Baba had divested himself of all property except the samadhi itself, but apparently the center was in his name.
It was at that time.
Yeah. Whatever you want to make of that.
I expect to lead a complicated free life from March 21st, a full free life from July 10th, and a fiery free life from November 15th. From the 16th of February, I make myself free to accept gifts, and as free to refuse them.
You see, this is new. By the way, we haven't mentioned it, but another big theme of the new life was careful accounting of money. Very exacting. At that meeting in Mahabaleshwar on 16th October 1950, right, remember that, where Baba stepped back into the old life for 4 hours. During that period, he permitted the people who came to that meeting and no one else to donate between 50 and 500 rupees. And they collected 23,000 some rupees to be used on his work with the poor and with the musts, right? And afterwards, they sent out circulars where every rupee was accounted for. You know, 5 people got 5 rupees, and this category got 5 rupees each. 8 poor families got 500 rupees each, and the city and the dates and all this stuff. So this was a big part of the new life, was accounting for money. And one imagines that, you know, money is the cause of so much trouble, and in the future probably people will try to live the new life, and Baba was setting the precedent, you know, be straight and open with money.
From the 21st of March, anyone who wishes to come to me, to see me and contact me, may do so, but he or she must make his own arrangements. As regards stay, food, etc., I might give mass darshan when I feel it necessary or have the inclination to do so. Any reference to my old life state, which I have now regained, may be expressed verbally in my presence by anyone who wishes to do so.
Right, you get it? This has been absolutely prohibited throughout the new life. If new life companions did it, they would get kicked out. So that rule is lifted now.
But I will not, in accordance with my new life standards, accept any external homage, such as bowing or touching of the feet. Although the Manonash work is done fully and completely, and the result must and will definitely come 100% to my satisfaction, I now give freedom to each and all who are connected with me to choose what manner of life they henceforth wish to live. They are free either to live with me and, of course, obey my orders, or to live away from me and obey my orders. To lead the life I tell them to lead, or to lead their own lives in any way they please, i.e., completely free from orders of any kind from me. This includes the arrangement wallas, but in their case, the only kind of freedom I cannot give them is freedom from the responsibility that they have shouldered to the end.
By the way, in the meetings in August 1949, where Baba declared the new life, you had to either say yes or no, with no qualifications, no equivocation, no asking Baba, what should I do, none of that. But the third category was comprised of arrangement wallas, and there were, I think, 5 of them. I'm never quite sure whether Jal Karawala was one or not. Jal Karawala, Sarosh, Mirji, Ramju, and Naraman. And they had certain responsibilities with money, funds of money, and various other tasks that they performed. As it turned out, Padre wound up getting called a lot. And certain Kitty and Rano, Korshad and her mother, Sunamasi, got the opportunity to stay with the women from time to time. And Baba also did stay with Nariman and Arnavas from time to time. After a year or so, Baba did have certain contact with certain of his old life people. So anyway, this is new. This is the ending of the new life. Things are open again. People can come.
No matter what choice he makes, everyone shall share when the real freedom comes, at any moment, by the grace of God. To sum up my Manonash work in short, 1, I feel in all truth that the 4 months Manonash work has been done by me, by the help of God, to my entire satisfaction. 2, the result of this work must bear fruit sooner or later, either in the immediate present or sometime later or in the distant future. 3, the result will bring freedom to us all in proportion to our merits of love, faith, and service. 4, this freedom will be freedom from ignorance and will be the knowledge that we always were, are, and will be one with God. 5, this knowledge will make us realize and experience infinite love, power, bliss, and peace, which we always possessed and knew not of. Baba.
So, one of the great messages, I would say. One of the very few. Of course, he was out of the new life at this point. So,
And it does, it certainly does rhyme with the, his statement later, much later, 65. When the word of my love breaks out of its silence.
Yes.
In your heart, telling you who I really am, then you will know that is the real word that you have always been wanting to hear.
I'd be interested to see when Baba began talking about the word again after this time, because it was off the table for 3 years.
So for sure, by final declaration, then it's a big thing.
Yeah, yeah.
That may have been the impact of bringing the subject back, but from that point to the
Yeah.
end of his life, the subject
Major,
always
yeah.
came up from time to time.
So for the next year and a half, he went through this complicated free life, full free life, and fiery free life stage. But he came very close to declaring who he was with that message, the highest of the high. And that's it's a very powerful message. In the 50s, there are a whole series of really major messages. But what I find to be so interesting about it is that Baba never categorically says that he is the highest of the high. He always puts it as, if I am the highest of the high, then this. But if I'm not the highest of the high, I must be an ordinary man, and then that. And he never makes the categorical assertion that he's the highest of the high. He doesn't leave much doubt about it. But rhetorically, he did not actually declare it. I don't remember whether the word avatar actually comes up in that message. Anyone else happen to remember? I don't think so, but it might come up once. I'm not sure. But there
He
he's...
did the same thing in the Avatar Discourse.
Mm,
Back in '38, that was the first discourse published in the Mirabal
journal, yeah.
And it's all about the Avatar does this and the Avatar does that. And then abrupt change, the last paragraph, it says, I will do this, I will do that. But he never makes the connection.
Saying, I am the avatar.
Yes, it's a sort of it's
Yeah.
just an abrupt change there. And he said, my work will result in me.
In highest of the high, he uses the term highest of the high repeatedly.
Right, that's the phrase.
But then who else would it be?
Right.
But he doesn't imply. I mean, he implies, he doesn't.
Doesn't categorically assert, but there's very little doubt about it left. Yeah. So this was the new life culminated in all of this. It looks like this life was the basis for establishing his avatarhood. It sure looks like that to me. And then after declaring his avatarhood in Hamirpur, in the months following, he was still traveling and giving darshans, and he had a whole bunch of statements where he's quite explicit. And then that year he dictated God Speaks, which was published in 1955. And at the darshan in 1955, he told Francis Brabazon to write, "Stay with God," which is really a proclamation of Baba as avatarhood. So it looks like this whole period was vitally related to his establishment of his avatarhood. Yeah.
I was just going to say, in Jamie's series on Baba and the historical perspective, it seems that yesterday's talk, or the most recent talk, regarding the word avatar, he was saying the same thing, that Baba really didn't seem to come out and state. But he said that people who were writing letters to Baba and would address it, what is it, Sri Sadhguru, Mayor Baba, something like that?
Yeah.
That it came a time when Adi was told anything that was addressed to Sri Sadhguru, Mayor Baba, was to be returned to the sender, and they could send it back if they addressed it. Avatar, Mayor
Wow.
Baba.
Adi did that himself. That was part of his thing when he said, after I had 100% assurance, then any time a letter would come and say, Shri Mayor Baba, I send it back.
So it wasn't Baba's decision, it was Adi's.
Adi would do
Oh,
that.
it was
Adi decided for Baba.
Oh, okay.
Well, you know, when that discourse was published in 1938 in the Meher Baba Journal, Chanji was maintaining contact with Mahatma Gandhi, and he brought him that first issue, and Gandhi didn't like it at all. Probably Gandhi could see that Baba was implying that he was the avatar, and that was too much for Gandhi. So when Chanji got back, Baba said, "You idiot, Chanji, didn't you know not to show him that? He's too, orthodox, Baba." Of course, Chanji would tend to get torn to pieces no matter what he did.
There's that story in 1927, they went on a picnic one day in 1927 to Shinde, the village on the way to Marazad. Dake's had a brother-in-law there, and they had a picnic. Bob was playing marbles. And while he was playing marbles, he said, "There's an avatar on Earth in this age. Right now he's playing marbles."
When Baba went to the West in 31, more in 32 when he had public messages, he kept implying that he was the Christ, but never exactly said so. I think he did tell some of his close ones that he was.
Circle people he did.
Circle people, but the public, he sure he certainly didn't deny the implication. So he did that with the West also.
And it has to do with the preparation of the world to hear that everything he does in his life is integrated in his work, and timing is Bob would talk about time and timing occasionally.
But since we have just a few minutes, I wanted to mention some of the big features of the new life. One of them is these 4 phases, the begging phase, the Langodi phase, gypsy phase, and labor phase. And I really have puzzled why these 4 things. The Langodi phase, the companions did it for 15 minutes in Sarnath, and that was the end. Baba himself did it once or twice. He did it at Ramakrishna's place in Dakshineshwar. This thought comes to my mind. It's a superficial thought, but talk about very primitive, basic human needs. We're not talking about spirituality, but just as the creaturely existence, okay? Begging, well, that's food, right? Langodi, clothing, huh? I know it means more than that, but it is literally connected with clothing. That's another basic thing, human thing. Gypsy, well, home, place to roof over your head. And labor, well, your daily work. So it does seem to, touch upon basic aspects of our life as material creatures. That's the only thing I can think. It's sort of curious why he picked those 4 things, though. Langodi actually seems to me that it is more broadly associated with the meditational path. Because, like Buddha, they did it in Buddha's place. And Baba did seem to indicate a number of times that meditation would come into prominence in the future. He said that thing to Don Stevens about that. He said, while I'm here, the gate to love is wide open, and it would be a waste of time to pursue meditation. But gradually the gate to love will close. And at that time, the secondary paths will come into prominence, of which meditation is the foremost. And also in the Meher Ashram with the boys, right, 1927, 28, the first huge explosion that happened that everybody knows about was a love explosion. They went love mad, with Choti Baba, Chota Baba experiencing sixth plane and so forth and so on. But what people don't know about so much is when Baba moved to Toka, there was another madness among the boys, and it was a meditation madness. They were sleeping an hour a night and getting up and just meditating the whole time. And at one point, early on, Baba, when he was having all this trouble with Ali, Baba said, I'll have to do it all over again. At Mehrabad. And Ramju interpreted that, that's what Toka was.
Absolutely.
He had to start over. But that time, it was meditation. So it makes me think that meditation will come in big sometime. And maybe that's what the Langodi thing is about.
And maybe the gypsy life is the wandering of the seeker.
Well,
Maybe
let's say
so.
all those 3 phases are they're aspects of the ascetic life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what stands out in my mind. They're kind of minimal. I mean, the Langodi, that's the loincloth.
Right.
That's as basic as you can get in terms of clothing. And the place to stay, sometimes they were under the stars, sometimes they were, whatever. But those were all things that were kind of based on people's willingness to give to them, or to cooperate with them.
Mm-hmm.
But the labor phase seems like
Right.
more in our own control.
Yeah.
Something we can do, whether...
It's more compatible with ordinary life rather than asceticism.
Yeah.
Or like you were saying, there was dynamism. Baba was always wandering, moving during the life until the final phase of Manonash at Marasat.
Right. He left from Ahmednagar and, as I was saying at the very beginning, look at all the traveling he did throughout this whole thing. I didn't even mention when he was seeking poor people in musts. Man, he went up to Nepal, went down to Calcutta, and then went down to near Madras. That's down in the, it's Chennai now, it's in the southwestern part of the coast. And then went up to Hyderabad and did a lot of work there. And then he went to various places in Maharashtra and Bombay and Pune. I mean, it would be just exhausting to have done that work with him. I don't know how they ever did it. So the whole new life, there were phases where they would have a home for a while, particularly the women, like at Satara for 2-3 months. That was a long time in the new life. And then they went to Mahabaleshwar and were there for a while, for probably about 6 months.
Dehradun a little bit.
Huh?
Dehradun, for those few weeks in there.
At the beginning, they were up in Manjri Mafi, Dehradun, yeah. And there was a house there. And Baba, by the way, while Baba with just a few of his companions, while most of them were in Manjri Mafi, which is basically Dehradun, he himself went down to the Kumbh Mela, which is about 30-40 miles away. And, Hardwar, it was at Hardwar. which is not far from Rishikesh. I haven't been there myself. It's what, 20 miles from Rishikesh?
Yeah, it's not very far. When I went to India the first time, that was just
Yeah.
over. It was just over.
The Kumbh Mela. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Baba there was this little teeny hut that had been made. I think he rented it actually. He always wanted to pay rent. And they would walk from Motichur, that was the little town, about 5 miles to Hardwar. And what Baba did the whole time was just go to sadhus and bow down to one after another. And this is another of the things that has puzzled me. What exactly was it in the behavior of the companions that did not satisfy Baba? Because, when Gandhi goes on a strike, okay, you can get that one. And there were a few things like that. But it wasn't just that. He seems to have been generally dissatisfied. And a key episode was during the Kumbh Mela period. I was on April 1st, 1950, and this is right at the peak of the Kumbh Mela. And Baba had gone with Baijul Erich, Gustaji, and they went to an ashrama, a gathering of sannyasis. And Baijul saw that the full assemblage hadn't arrived yet. Knowing that Baba wanted to bow down to as many as possible, he was saying to Baba, no, let's go on, we'll come back here later. But Baba apparently wanted to do it right then. And I don't know what happened. Maybe Baijul was insisting or something, so that Baba 10 days later brought it up and had a big meeting and said, Baijul was exhibiting his old life habits, which he hasn't renounced. So I would love to ask Erich, what was it? Maybe Baijul was being a stubborn ass. He probably was. It doesn't exactly say so. And there was a big meeting. At that time, there were still 8 people in Plan 3, which is the original New Life. And Baba asked Erich, and also Baijul, after Baba berated him on the occasion, Baijul turned to Pendu and said, Baba's in a bad mood today. And Baba overheard that. And then the question was, you see, I tell you, if you're a bureaucrat or a lawyer, there's place for you in the New Life. Because the big discussion was Baijul criticizing Baba or merely conveying to Pendu information about Baba's mood? Believe it or not, that was the discussion. And so Baba asked Erich what he thought, and Erich said, I think he was just conveying information about your mood. And Baba was really unhappy. And he said, this can't go on anymore. So what was the issue exactly? Baba was not, and he dissolved the plan and they all had to go into Plan 1B, which is the labor phase, because of that episode.
The only clue we have is his explanation on the one day back into the old life, where he said,
right,
the companions couldn't
right.
follow me as I wanted them to. But
right.
after all, how could they know
right.
what I really needed?
Yeah, he did. And at the time, with this Baijul thing, Baba said, well, I can't really take you to task for this because I myself haven't overcome my own weaknesses. He said, I've overcome them 60%, but 40% are left. That's what he said, actually. So, it seems that Baba, and there are things he said then where it seems what Baba was really bothered by was he felt that his oath compelled him to take the companions to task and to kick them out of the New Life if they weren't living it properly. And he kept not doing that. He kept accommodating their weaknesses, and he felt really dissatisfied with that. It seems like that really was the concern.
That's
Don't you
right.
think so?
The impossibility.
Yeah.
He explained that in that day, one day back into the old life, he explained his failure was that he was too strict with the mandali. After all, how could they know? And the other side, going on with the explanation, then at the same time he explains, and he was too lenient with the mandali. So it was an impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Nobody could do it. I mean, this is the A team that went with them, and there was one time where Baba was saying, if Erich one more time says to me, Baba, I'm sorry, it's my fault, I'm going to just throw up my hands and give up.
He's got to leave.
But here's what I suspect, is that actually, in some of those times, Erich was feeling irritated. But knowing better, he said, Baba, I'm sorry, it's my fault. But actually, he was irritated. But you can't fool Baba on these things.
And you couldn't express anger like that.
Right, you couldn't. So Erich, Baba's like, this goddamn guy, he's feeling frustrated.
What occurs to me in this Baidu incident and many other incidents along the way of the new life was that Baba really was a seeker.
Yeah.
And he was illustrating what it is to live with companions.
Yeah.
The ambiguity in those relationships, the struggle, things weren't clear cut.
Yeah.
And so, I can identify with that. Things are not clear cut.
There's a very interesting case of this, if we had time, that in that pamphlet by Ramju called Mayor Baba and the God-Determined Step, which is mostly about the Hyderabad meeting in 1951. But the first part of it, he's talking about several days he spent with Baba. Baba called him in November 1950. And he's really talking about what Baba was like as a man. He was really focused and trying to see, is Baba really an ordinary man? And this Ramju is not an ordinary guy at all. He was an extraordinary fellow. He's really being honest. And he gives some incidents where a little conflict came up, where Pandu and Baijul were both saying, well, Baba is wrong in this respect and that. And Baba really tried to say, as honest as I'm always trying to admit when I get angry during the new life, but I really do think that they were wrong in this case. So here you have actual dialogue between the companions as to whether Baba... The problem, Baba had two big faults in the new life that he talks about. One is he had a hard time controlling his temper, and the other was that he kept accommodating the weaknesses and failings of his companions when he shouldn't have done so. And where that wound up ending, he got them all out of Plan 3 because their understanding and his were so far apart that it was irreconcilable. That's what Baba said. So they couldn't go on with that. So they were put back into Plan 1B, which was the labor phase. And that's when they started the ghee business. So they started it at absolutely the perfect time. May in Delhi. May is like the peak of summer, and they're making ghee, boiling big bubbling pots. And it was a total business failure. But after another 2 months, Baba dissolved all three plans, and this is the resolution that he seems to have arrived at, that Baba seems to have been happy with. He gave them the option to become servant companions. They would be companions in the new life, but they were to serve like a servant obeys the master. And if ever there was a deal they needed unionization, man, I'll tell you, it's just, they had no rights at all. He could give them food or not give them food, et cetera, et cetera. But here's what Baba said: when you have servants, it's just to be expected that they'll screw up and make mistakes from time to time. And you can either kick them out or keep them, but you're not compromised by their faults. That seems to have been the issue. Baba, they could be servants, and if they failed, he was not violating his oath by keeping them on. It looks to me, and then the issue ended. The second year, there's not a whole lot of talk about the failings of the companions anymore. The focus has shifted to Baba himself doing that critical work leading to Manonash, is what I think.
Can you say again, what was the essence of the third plan that he kicked him out of? What was the whole plan?
Yeah, these are the 3 plans, and we haven't had time to go over them, but Plan 3 was the original new life with its original conditions for the people who didn't want to get into plans 1 or 2.
So it sounds like the Mandali, he's chastising the Mandali because they have a bad attitude.
Something,
Attitude is not what
yeah.
should be.
It seems like they couldn't, this is just what I think, Baba never quite said this, their habits of mind they couldn't completely get out of, whatever they were.
I keep thinking about this concept, pure humility. What is that? You know, and how that corresponds to what pure divinity, divine man, pure humility, ordinary man.
Yeah.
And if his companions were essentially just doing normal human things, which are very confusing, very paradoxical, and very distracting,
Yeah.
how could he achieve pure humility, which sounds like the need,
Yeah.
the want?
Well, it seems like by getting angry, he wasn't being perfectly humble. And that was his main criticism of himself. He would blow up.
But if you forego the trigger,
Yeah.
okay, which is you say, all right, these people are no longer really, you know, I'm not going to pay attention to all of this because they're my servants, and of course they're doing all of this.
Yeah.
But when we say he would become angry, it was not like, for an example, at the Imampur Mosque, the last incident where he told Eric, get rid of that bird, it's making noise. Then he clapped his hands and said, you see what I just did? And he had the companions come in and spit on him, kick him the next day.
And that had happened that was a dramatic one, but
Yeah, that was
very often he had them kick him. Sometimes he would just out of the blue say, come kick me. And they had to do
Often
it.
he would give the explanation. I did that, it was abrupt, wasn't right. Beat me,
So he's correcting
spit on me,
himself.
kick me.
Yeah. You know, we probably better close, but there's just one little story about, somehow I find it enchanting about Murli. Back when they were up in Mandri Mafi, and he was running the bullock cart with these 2 English bulls. And the others had gone back to the house, I suppose, and he was alone. And he had this cart with these 2 bulls, and English bulls, and they refused to move. And they were right in the middle of the road. So this British guy, military officer, came driving up in a car with his family and was blasting the horn. And, he said, moo, and finally he went off the road, and before driving off he said, can't you get here? Don't you have any consideration for anybody else? Move your cart off the road. And Murli said, I'm very, very sorry, sir, but since these are English bulls, they don't seem to understand my language. Perhaps you could explain it to them and they'll keep it in mind in the future. And the officer and his whole family laughed, and I thought, magnificent display of new life, isn't it? Because he did it in such a way that the guy, the whole thing was dissolved, and the guy forgave them, and there's a good example of how to live the new life. Well, we're after 5 o'clock, so we should probably call it a day. As you can see, there is so much in the new life. And when I've gone through this in these 6 and 9 day seminars, you feel at least I did, Wilson, you could say, but it's like you've been through a long, long journey from the beginning of the new life to the end. So, not just so much happened, there was a onward progression that happened. So that by the end, you really feel like you're in a new place. But I continue to feel the change did not happen in the new life. I really feel the new life is. It's there. And it didn't change. But in Baba's attempt to actualize it as an avataric act, there was this huge movement and vast distance that was covered in that 2.5-year period. So, anyway, Jai Baba, everybody.
Hey, Bob.